start your morning, Justin.
That's right, bright and early.
I'm always up early, so we're good. Here we go. We're live. Look
We
at
are
that.
live.
All right, so we got people coming in. Very excellent. We're going to let people sort of gather for the next minute, and then we'll get started. But this is your UX session. To talk all things UX today. Oh, look at that. A ton of people are in.
There's a little bit of delay between what we see on screen, what people hear, and the whole world connecting. So we're looking good.
Good. Well, let's get started. This is the UX discussion panel, and we're going to introduce ourselves. And once we do that, I'm going to talk about how we're going to proceed and what we're going to do. So I'll start. My name is Dean Schuster. I am a partner and owner of a UX consultancy in the United States on the East Coast. I do only UX all the time, and specialize in complex digital products. Let's go ahead and Chris, introduce yourself.
Good morning, good afternoon. My name's Chris Averill. I'm based in London. I previously ran a very successful service design, product design business based in London and New York. And I've mostly coach businesses now on how to do better. And a lot of that is around understanding customer behavior and customer needs. So I'm super passionate about getting UX at the front of everything that's done, because I believe that UX solves every problem.
And Justin.
Awesome. Yeah, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Justin Racine. I'm a senior commerce consultant at Perficient, and Perficient is a digital consulting agency based over here in the United States, but with a global footprint and presence. I work within our commerce practice, so basically any client that I work with is selling something in some sort of digital footprint, whether that's through a mobile tablet or through a PC experience. So I work with our clients to really figure out how to leverage the best possible experience for their customers or their clients, and how technology plays a role in that. So starting with experience first, and what we'll probably talk a little bit about today is great customer experience, and then working back to find the appropriate technology that's going to deliver that experience and exceed our customer expectations. So great to be here with all of you this morning.
All right. Now we're going to have a pretty informal panel today. We've got some things that we're going to talk about in terms of UX, but what we want to do is make sure we're talking about the things that you care about. So over in the Pine tool, you have the ability to add questions or to chat. We're going to be looking at that very closely. And what you want to know or understand or discuss related to user experience is what we want to discuss with you today. So be sure to do that. And we're going to go ahead. Very good, Chris. We're going to go ahead and start right there. What on earth is UX? That's where we're going to go. And I say that because UX for me, at least in my circle, has become a big buzzword over the last several years in particular. We've been doing UX my whole career. Now everyone seems to be talking about it, but no one seems to agree as to what it means, or no one seems to necessarily agree as to what a UX practitioner is or does, or what their title even means. So we're going to dive in and talk about what is UX. Let's start that. And so let's dive in. Chris?
Yep, good.
What is it?
What is UX? I think I've been working on UX since I was about 3 or 2, and was trying to either make things, break things, or communicate. And I honestly, for me, UX has always been about removing the complexity, removing difficulty, making life easier to navigate. UX is very focused on digital, because there's so much interaction, and user experience is so important to help people navigate new tech. But I've been fascinated recently reading a lot about digital car displays
Ah,
and how hard it is to get your car to do what it should do when on a touch screen. When in the old world, it would just twist the knob to turn the heat up or down. Yeah, you twist the knob to change the radio station. So, it's a great example where UX isn't necessarily being thought through properly, where it's, we're creating technology and putting it in place because it's clever, not because it's better. So for me, UX is all about making people's lives easier, solving problems, making our day-to-day interaction better.
Justin, how about you? You're focused really heavily on commerce. What does UX mean for you?
Yeah, I think I would agree a lot with what Chris said. And, on the commerce side, it's definitely about, as Chris alluded to, making sure that the customers that are trying to purchase through whatever the experience is can do so in an intuitive and streamlined way that's in the realm of what their expectations are. So, for example, we work with a lot of organizations that are both direct to consumer and also a B2B organization. But one experience that's on a direct to consumer site may not make sense for a B2B site and vice versa. So for us, it's really about aligning what our customers, end user or customers' expectations are, and really what sort of they're looking for in a purchasing experience, and making sure that it's easy for them to do that as they look to actually buy something online, right? Because especially today with so many different competitors that are out there and different options that folks have to purchase, um, people will buy somewhere else if the experience is really clunky or it isn't in line with what
Yeah.
their expectations are.
And I think that's a great point, which is, when you're in a shop, in a physical shop, you kind of browse two or three, but you got to walk down the high street, you got to change location. When you're online, if it's not working straight away, you're out, done. I mean, the loss of value customer to other brands is so dramatic. And I guess, what you're saying, UX is like, get UX right, as well as lots of other things, but get that flow and you keep customers, win customers.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm giving another presentation right after this roundtable or this panel discussion here. And one of the sources that I list in there from PwC research says that 86% of buyers will spend more for a better customer experience. So let's think about that for a second, right?
Yeah.
That's a ton of people who are willing to spend more of their hard-earned dollars to have a better experience. And that's a pretty cool statistic, because it means that if you can create something so exceptional that people are going to continue to come back and buy from you, that you don't have to worry about them going somewhere else, A, and B, you don't have to lower your price to try to compete against, one of your competitors, because that your experience is superior and people are shopping with you because they do like your brand, but also you make it easy for them. So that's a very powerful statistic in my mind.
So I've heard three things already. One is that UX is sort of a holistic thing, and I want to come back to that in a minute. But UX also great experience as a baseline requirement, especially today, where we have so much choice. And then as an add-on to that, UX as a differentiator. If your experience is better, as Justin, you're saying, you've got a shot at charging more. You've got a shot at keeping people. Conversely, if UX is not strong, not present, my barrier to leaving you is almost zero. So I'm gone. Let's expand on that a little. Yeah.
Quick question as we go into this, because I'm just thinking about the audience and what the audience will want to hear. So guys in the audience, as Dean said, ask us some questions, because this is for you. We could talk about this for the rest of our lives.
We could.
But I'm going to ask you both a quick question. So I'm going to nick your leadership role here, Dean. Who is the most important person in the UX role in a business, in an agency, client side, brand side, doesn't matter? Who is the pinnacle? Who makes UX work?
I have an answer to that question. If I am working with any client, the most important UX person in that realm is the person who's signing a check or making a decision. That's not just because that's how my company does business. It's just that if someone is leading a company and is accepting all the risk for that, they are keenly aware of the things they need to do to succeed. And if they care about UX, then their organization will. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So that person is absolutely essential. And if you don't have leadership, or particularly at the highest levels, people who don't care about UX there, you're in trouble for embracing it at all, because you're for better or worse, your company is going to absorb and reflect the value and opinions and comportment of its leaders.
So the sponsor, basically, the person who's paying, needs to be a UX champion, and then we can all benefit. So, Dean, I guess what you're that approach is super important. How do we educate? Justin, when you're pitching e-commerce, how do you educate people at the top in organizations to prioritize UX over tech stack or marketing or cutting cost?
Well, it's sometimes challenging, right? Because you'll speak with some clients or some folks who have certain agenda items that they want to do. They want to change out their technology stack and they want to align on one specific platform. And sometimes things like user experience or even search engine optimization just kind of get swept under the rug, or it's put to the side as something we can do later. You'll see someone will say, "We have a site today, people are ordering, so we'll just we can fix the issues we have later," which in my mind is kind of not really aligning with what the customers are probably looking for. So we have some different use case and case studies that we've worked on, and our experience design team has put together to show the power of good UX and what it can actually do with clients. So we try to leverage wherever we can real life examples of folks that we've worked with and things that we've done, and saying, here's what we changed in this specific account, here's what their problems were, and here are the results that are there. So I think the big things are just shining a light on something like user experience that maybe doesn't get as much attention as it should, and then showing what the power of the possibilities are to actually either fixing some workflows that are potentially not ideal, or just doing a simple refresh on some design elements. So that's typically how we try to go in on it.
So a bit of like tell and a bit of show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, especially, because we're talking about user experience, it's very visual, right? So if we can show the before and afters of things that we've worked on, and how customers have reacted to new experiences, it just makes it that much more compelling for the folks. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So showing data is a way that we'll attempt to educate. And for us, that's how we attempt to win over, how shall I put this, troublesome stakeholders.
Disbelievers.
Yeah. So if we come in with data from user tests, or data from qualitative or quantitative surveys or things like this, and we have a shot at convincing someone that UX is worth the trouble. But again, education is actually a very difficult thing to do. It's more like this preponderance of evidence has to get you to the place where you're ready to receive and ready to listen. Then voices like ours will make sense. But if you're committed to not caring about this sort of stuff, almost nothing I tell you will change your mind. So that's been a difficult thing that I've noticed in the UX industry. I've noticed a lot of people invested heavily. I'm thinking 5-10 years ago in education, and then they've scaled back a little bit, feeling that when you're ready, you'll know. That doesn't answer the question well. I think for people who are working, I think we can be a little more practical on that, and maybe we will. But I want to. We do have a question I want to hit on first of all, I love in the QA your question, Chris. What does UX mean? I'm so tempted to hit mark as answered, but I can't.
Mark never answered.
I can't do it. But we have another question that let's address this. What are some easy and cost-effective ways to improve UX user experience on a website? So let's attack that one, and I think that's going to lead to some other things.
Yeah. Okay. Can I just I'll have a quick stab at it, because I think I'm going to answer my own question as well at the same time. So UX, I think, is CX.
Yeah.
I think it's customer experience, because I mean we all, you know, in a marketing forum, we're really talking about customers, end users, people who are accessing systems and services to do something, and they're probably paying for either through data or through buying a thing. So to improve the customer experience, my first tip, and I think if we do 2 or 3 tips each, keep it quick. My first tip is get the customer involved very early on. Any research, guerrilla research, friends and family. One opinion is better than none. And I think I've used that a lot over the years to persuade difficult clients, difficult stakeholders to go our way. You know, a bit of research goes a very long way. It's very persuasive. But what I also found is getting that stakeholder, that client, to sit and watch the research is often the first time they've taken time to look at the end-to-end customer journey. You know, they just don't look at the website like a customer does. They don't buy the product, experience the friction and the challenges. So for me, the number one tip to improve customer experience or UX, get the customer involved, use that as a way of steering the conversation, highlighting the problems, and you know, I'll pass the question on to you guys.
What do you say, Justin?
Yeah, the voice of the customer is huge. It's definitely part of the formula that we use, and the customer having them a part of the process not only will help make the platform or the experience better, but it will also strengthen your brand value or brand affinity with that specific customer or segments of customers you're having involved, because their voice is being heard and they can actually see their suggestions come to life through the website. So that's huge. To answer the specific question, some easy and cost-effective ways to improve the UX. My answer is going to be a little bit of a letdown, because I'll say it depends. I could tell you that you could remove one page in your checkout workflow, put your billing and shipping information on one page, have a one-page checkout. I could tell you on your product detail pages, to move your upsell products off of the bottom to the top. But that's just my opinion, and my opinion is important, right? I have experience in this space, but it's really going to come down to what your data and analytics say. And that's what I would tell you as a number one tip that's really easy and cost effective to get started is look at what your data says. Where are your what are some pages that you have that have massive bounce rates or high exit rates? Or what does your conversion rate look like on your cart page? Or do you have a lot of cart abandonment rates? That's the perfect place to start, because the data and analytics will be your compass sort of to your success, right? Because it will actually tell you where there's problem situations today. And then you can focus in on, okay, well, I know that a lot of people, whenever they get to the cart page, they seem to leave. Why is that? Well, maybe there's the subtotals hidden at the bottom, or you're not including your tax and your freight information on that page, and it's hard for people to navigate and find the items that they have in their cart. And that will help you figure out what are some hopefully low-hanging fruit things to hit first.
Yeah, and especially in commerce, I'd like you to comment on this notion of emerging standards. So there are by now some very clear usability and interface related standards for commerce that simply have to be followed. So if you're violating common standards, you already know you've got a problem. Are you seeing this, Justin, in the work
you talk about kind of best practice?
Sure. Yeah.
Like the best sites you use, copy them.
Yeah. We know a lot about commerce by now. It's 2021, for instance, right? We know a lot about how a shopping cart should work, or at least, Chris, you mentioned vehicles. We know how vehicles work. We're starting to have expectations around what makes a good shopping experience, which is why we leave when it's terrible. So I've seen a lot of commerce experiences violate basic rules. Like, for instance, I don't know. I have very bad feedback mechanism about, what I've just done or in my purchase, or I don't know if a purchase was successful, or I don't know if how much does something really going to cost by the time it's all said and done. Things like this. I would go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry. Did you want me to?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was just joking.
Give us it.
No worries. Yeah, it depends for sure, and there's even laws out there for usability issues for people who might have disabilities, right? So user experience goes beyond just creating a workflow that's intuitive to what the customer's expectations are. There's certain laws and things that are out there that folks have to follow by, because people who have disabilities have to still have the same opportunities as all of us to use these sites and actually make purchases. So user experience goes beyond just, it's challenging for me to find, where to actually check my card out. So I would say that folks definitely have to keep that in mind as part of it. But more about what you're speaking about or asking about here is that, yeah, you really, one of the biggest things that I try to incorporate into the clients that we work with, or just anyone in general, is that the voice of the customer is huge, and the data and analytics will tell you that, but you can still leverage things like on-site surveys or post-purchase surveys as ways to find out how the experience went, or find out where there might be bottlenecks in the process. And if you're a B2B organization, you can definitely leverage your sales team as well to reach out to customers and figure out, where some things are going well, where some things are going bad, and help kind of weave some of that into the product roadmap as well. So there's so many different angles of attack, I'll say, for customer experience, and it's really going to depend upon what your business is. The great thing is that everyone here probably your business better than anyone else does, so that's a great starting point. And then working back to your customers, working back to your data, will give you the starting point on how to kind of handle and hit some of this.
Yeah.
So
And
what I'm hearing. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, Dean, you wrapped it. Sorry, summarize, please.
No, what I'm hearing from you, Chris and Justin, is hearing from the user and customers valuable. And Justin, you're going further to say, don't stop. It's not an episodic thing. You should be constantly doing it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's a great point. Thank you for bringing it up. So one thing we definitely see a lot in commerce, and this I'm not trying to call people out, but definitely in the C-suite, where executives feel that e-commerce is a project, right? So there's a start, a middle, and then it ends, but it really never ends. Commerce is an ever evolving thing. It's like the universe; it's constantly expanding, and it's true. So you have to constantly be iterating upon what you've built, right? So if you built an experience for your customer 5 years ago, it's definitely out of date. Why? Because everyone else is developing new experiences every day, and you have to keep up with what people are seeing and interacting with when they're experiencing things elsewhere, right? It's not just a one show game here. There's so many different players in the mix, and it creates this competitive environment where every single second, minute, and day that there's new experiences being developed, that is now the benchmark and the baseline for what customers expect. So you constantly have to be evolving.
Do you know, I read a scary stat that the rate of change today is 4 times faster than it was 20 years ago. So when basically we were kind of, kicking off work, and e-commerce was in its very early days. And in another 20 years, it'll be 10 to 15 times faster. So that ongoing evolution, that never stopping, no more big bang launches of digital services is super important. But I think there's also an element of tension between who's responsible for CX and UX. And this comes back to Andrea's question, what are the quick changes? Well, we can recommend some quick front-end design changes, and they could be implemented. but what about the back end and the tech issues? And through my career, I've really always noticed tension between the business, the designers, and the developers. Tech can achieve so much if it's briefed right, if it fits into the process, the flow of development correctly. Design can make or break every experience if it's not egotistical but well thought out. And nothing wrong with egotistical design, but you know what I mean. Like, designers need to know when to adapt and not just plow on with light grey text on a white background. And the business, getting that brief right, getting the understanding out of the business, so you're designing and building the right thing. The business gets the customer. So it's a loop that goes all the way around back again into briefing. And so I think to get some fast solutions, some cost-effective solutions, is how do you bring those three together? User research is great. Stats are great. Quick design concepts are great. How do technologists deal with it? Like, I'm not a techie. How do technologists create better UX quickly and cost effectively?
Yeah, I would say how we're answering the question, I think, is the right way to answer this question from a UX perspective. If you're looking for a quick answer to solve all your UX problems, you won't find it. What you need to do is think about some foundational things about process, right? Bringing everyone to the table, constantly speaking to your customers. When you're doing these things, a lot of the UX problems of your product, your site, will become very apparent very fast, and you'll be able to prioritize those problems. What I would add to that is, if you're really focused on understanding what a UX problem is with a site or product, you should audit that site. You should have a professional look at it, perhaps, or you should and you should audit it for several things. Certainly for user experience or usability problems, this could be a test or an audit. You should be looking at your content and your words. We haven't gotten into that yet. Chances are you need to rewrite an awful lot of what's out there in order to make it more usable. The connection of content to UX and usability, they're virtually the same thing. And then, Justin, you hit upon a super important issue, which was accessibility. In other words, making something usable for everyone, which is a standard today that you must do just to be, a moral entity, as well as just to serve people. Yep. So all of those things are super important, and you could actually audit those things and figure something out. So there's varieties of investigation, I think, is where we're at here. We're thinking about analytics. We're thinking about getting in touch with the user. We're thinking about thinking carefully about what all people in the making part of it are contributing and understanding, and then simply working to audit. Those things alone will lead you to the answers, or at least you'll have a set of things that you could prioritize and attack.
Yeah. So you're talking about content, Dean. I'm super interested in how content and content strategy has become, a really important part. I mean, content's always been important, but I think it was kind of copywriting, and it was stuff taken from print into digital. But now content strategy and content is much more the heart of good user experience. And I don't really understand exactly how you position it, but I'd love to hear how content's become the kind of new UX.
Well, I can tell you very briefly that content strategy is, in the past 5 years or so, become a powerful part of how we even think about UX, let alone how we deliver it. So the content strategy sort of wing of my company has grown quite a lot in the past 5 years, because finding people who understand how the communication of words works in a setting of a digital product is still a rare skill. So when I say content strategist, or I say content strategy for web. I'm talking about anytime you're encountering something that you have to read or digest in order to understand something. It probably has to do with not just an interaction, not just a design, not just functionality, but a word, and maybe even one word. So writing microcopy for digital products is an advanced, specialized skill that, from a marketing perspective, is simply not the same as marketing. It couldn't be further from promotional activity. It's more like the UX of words.
Yeah.
Is the way we view it.
And who does it? What sort of skill set? I mean, is it a designer, a copywriter? I mean, who do you hire to do it?
Well, it starts with writing, and anyone who wants to be a strong content strategist needs to understand writing. But you need to commit to understand a whole new realm of what writing is. You have to think of it as a different beast entirely. I could not pluck any given writer from even one of the strongest digital agencies you're thinking of right now and expect them to be a content strategist. So what we do, since content strategy is still young, in my opinion, is we find people who show the promise and ability to be UX professionals who are writers.
Okay.
And we see if we can get them to be content strategists. And usually what happens is if you have any proclivity of thinking about digital products or how the flow of usability works with respect to words, you will cotton on to that fast. It's if you can't make that transition into I write words that people read to I write the words that people may or may not ever read, but when they do, every single word is important.
Yeah.
And that's a very different mindset. That's what a content strategist does. That's what's pivotal for your product. So one of the things I was going to say was, I was going to say audit for content alone could make your product better.
Yeah. And easy to change because you don't need any tech to change content. You just need to type, and you could totally transform the whole experience your customers have. That's a really interesting point. So as a sort of the objective surveys and feedback, but doing a really thorough content audit could totally transform the way people see your service or business.
Yes, and the first thing, Andrew, your question implies, what you could do today. From a content perspective, you need to do a lot less than you're doing. That's my first.
Less content.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
fewer words, less words, and you want the right words. Especially, I'm thinking just in commerce. My goodness, one word here or there can make the difference.
It can, and thankfully, due to technology, we have the ability to serve up different types of content, like you were just alluding to the different personas on the site. So here's a good use case for that. So in the B2B space, my background is primarily in medical products. So I worked as director of e-commerce for some large medical device manufacturers. And within that space, you have different personas who are navigating to this one B2B portal to make a purchase. You could have someone who's in a stockroom or a general purchaser who's basically, they never really see what's inside the pack case. They just see a brown box that comes up. You could have someone who is a doctor or a nurse that has a clinical background that is actually applying and using what that product is on a patient. Or in some cases, on the direct-to-consumer side, you have patients actually buying it for themselves. Each of those personas needs different pieces of content in order for them to feel comfortable making their purchase. So someone who has a business background, who is just really, a purchaser or a buyer who's putting the product into a stock room for that nurse to come and take, they don't really need to know the clinical trials and information in that product description. Whereas a nurse or a doctor might want to see the detailed, graphic pictures of the product being used in surgery or whatever it is. So using different front-end CMS and content management systems that can offer personalization to those different user sets will allow that site experience to change and serve up, to your point, Dean, the correct content for the correct person. And like you said, you don't need to have a massive paragraph of information or words. It needs to be specific and concise to what that person's looking for. So I would go ahead, Chris.
I was thinking as you're talking through that, I'm just thinking about, government services are probably, I mean, certainly in the UK, and I've worked a lot in the US and experienced the US, they're the worst written pieces of content in the world. I mean, we're all smart, educated people on this whole group watching this. You're all very smart people. You know this stuff inside out, yet you go and use these websites, and I get completely confused. So it's this whole content strategy thing probably is the next big massive shift in the way that sites are designed, products, sites, apps are designed and function, because it's got to work for everybody. But at the moment, it's still being written by those with some sort of archaic, deep knowledge, but no way of expressing themselves. I mean, who does it well and who's really sucks? I'm government sucker writing content. who else sucks and who does it well? What are the opportunities for our audience to go and make some money by fixing other people's problems? That's what I'm after.
Well,
Justin, go for it.
I'll make a probably controversial comment here on someone who I don't think is doing it particularly well. I'll be speaking about them in my presentation after this as well. But Amazon, Amazon is used by everyone, and I'll talk a little bit about their experience and how they've set up their product detail pages in the session coming up next. But they really haven't changed much on how they display things in a long time. And yes, they fill that product detail page up with so much content that's there, but I think it could be presented in a better way. We all know where to go for the reviews, and we have to scroll way down to do that.
Yeah.
It's a bad experience, but we're so innate and we are so used to what we have to do to find that information that it's become behavior in our mind, and we gloss over the fact that we have to scroll to find it. But there's better ways in my mind, and I'm not here to solve and say what they are, but I do believe that there's better ways for the Amazons of the world to tee up content that is displayed in a way that's more intuitive than what it is today. So I'll add that on as a bad example.
Yeah.
So copy Amazon at your peril is what.
Yeah. Or copy Amazon if you don't care about customer reviews. You just want to sell more products. But anyway, that's a different conversation. Dean, what are your bad sites, and do you have any good ones?
Oh, you hit on government straight up, but we see just a lot of this in corporations where corporations seem to want to present information that's important to them internally. And that they feel for some reason people will care about and or read. So what we teach and sort of preach to large organizations is to kill, and we use this term advisedly, to kill 90% of their internal content that they're displaying on a website. And then after they do that, consider what else they can cut. And we suggest that very seriously, to tell them that people don't care about what they're writing. They have things they want to do. And if you focused all your energies on the things I want to do with your company and want to accomplish, your money is going to be better spent and your results will be more interesting. So, if you really... sometimes I think the only people who care about these sections of sites are internal stakeholders and internal marketing people.
Yeah.
So I would say, organizations, big organizations do a bad job.
Yeah. Okay. That's really good. So I'm conscious we've got 5.5 minutes left. So if anyone wants to ask any more questions, we'd love to hear. And while we're doing that, can I tell a quick story about how UX and CX is so much more than just online?
Yes.
So I had a client a few years ago called the Metropolitan Police, which is the UK's biggest police force, and everything is done face to face. Basically, you're either arrested or saved pretty much by the police. We wanted to help them be more digital. So the challenge was that they just didn't get digital. It's all about people. And so we had to show, we actually created storyboards to show the user experience from being a member of the public who doesn't know when they should contact the police. When they contact the police, if the police don't get back in touch with them, they don't trust the police anymore. They stop being part of the policing force. And it's a vicious cycle. Whereas if you allow people to go online, read content that helps them make the decision, is it an emergency or not? Who do I contact and how? And then when do I hear back and what do I do next? Suddenly you create much more trust. So we're able to get the police through storyboards to understand what user experience means from their customer, the public, and how they could use digital reporting crime via social media and online forums to help reduce the calls to the emergency services and make the public feel safer. So for me, when I'm looking at UX, I'm not looking at a single screen or an interaction. I'm looking at a whole piece. Where do I start? What does it mean? How do I make contact? When I've made contact, what do I hear back? How do I tell my friends about this amazing experience being a product or a service? And that encapsulates user experience. It's the whole world we work in.
I love that. And I couldn't agree more. That is a perfect example of someone's experience with a thing. And that takes me back to how we started the conversation. What is UX at all? And in the early days when UX became a term, it was simply about the whole experience that you have with the thing. And it has nothing to do with just digital interfaces, for instance. It just has become a buzzword that's attached to digital interfaces for obvious reasons, Chris, that you mentioned. That's so important.
It's ubiquitous, but it's not everything.
Right. There's a whole experience that we've had understanding how to use this platform just for this conference. Or for me, my whole experience included understanding how to create a situation where my studio is working out right and I can do this virtually and get into the conference and talk with you. That's the whole experience. Couldn't agree more.
Pine's a component. It's nothing. So we've got a question. Right. There's a question in. So Dean, there's a question from the audience. Shall I ask it and you can answer it?
Yeah, go for it.
Role reversal. Okay, so I got a question from Adrian. What are our opinions on the current state of mobile UX, especially in DTC? I'm assuming that's direct to consumer brands. So fire away, 2 minutes. What is UX like at the moment for mobile?
Justin, go. No.
How did I know that this was going to get thrown over to me? So yeah, great question. The current state of mobile, I'd say, is complex. I think it's still trying to figure itself out. What is the best solution? Is it a mobile responsive site? Is it a native mobile app? Is it a PWA, a progressive web app, like how Starbucks.com has their site set up? Depends on your business. I would say don't look at what everyone else is doing. Look at what makes sense for you, right? Because just because Starbucks has a progressive web app as their platform of choice doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make sense for you. So look at your analytics today. If you're a direct to consumer brand, how much of your mobile traffic is actually looking to purchase? Are they really just looking to browse? Are they adding things to the cart, saving that cart, then converting on their desktop later? Depending on how that goes, will lead you in the direction of where you should, if you should do a mobile native app, if you should go down the PWA route, or if you should just optimize your site in a responsive nature for whatever your customer needs are. So I'll leave it there in case other
Dean,
folks
go for it. What are your views?
Comments?
All I can say is the world isn't getting less mobile. So let's just put it that way. Investing and thinking there is going to yield great benefit, no matter what you uncover.
I mean, I'm completely with you, both you guys. It's like, mobile first still isn't on a priority list for so many companies and so many brands. It's like you've got to at least make mobile work brilliantly and everything else work superbly. And too many people aren't, not enough people are doing that. And then voice, is going to be an interaction of the future. It still sucks. It's still utterly awful. Yeah. But once that technology is fixed, how does the interaction experience work? The content, the feedback, We haven't even managed mobile yet. So I think the world's a mess. But mobile, as you say, is not getting any less mobile. Okay, we're off. Thank you very much.
I think we're done.
Lovely to
Chris,
talk to you all.
Justin,
Take it easy.
thank
Get
you,
in touch if you want to hear more.
Thank you,
Indeed.
everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.